Hello, I'm Brianna Meyer, and my topic is Steve Jobs. Some things you probably didn't know about Steve was that he was born on February 24th, 1955 in San Francisco, California. He was actually adopted. His parents put him up for adoption because they were not wed and their families did not agree with having a child out of wedlock. And as a result, Paul and Clara Jobs adopted Steve. However, the adoption was not final unless they agreed they would send Steve to college when he was older. They kept their promise and they sent Steve to a liberal arts school called Reed College. Steve attended this college for one semester and then he got sidetracked with all the new trends going on. And then he eventually dropped out and he went to a hippie commune in Oregon to cultivate apples. Another thing you might not know is that he was actually really hard to work with. He had a very hot temper and he did not agree with many people's opinions and thoughts. As a result, he actually got practically kicked out of Apple, which is really surprising, but as we all know, he returned and he made a lasting impression to Apple and all their technology. Another thing you might not know is that he worked with Pixar and Disney. He helped make movies like Toy Story, Bugs Life, Monsters, Inc., Finding Nemo, Toy Story 2. I grew up with all of these movies, and it's pretty impressive he had a part to do with them. Another thing you might not know is that he actually had pancreatic cancer. He had surgery the first time to get rid of the cancer, and it worked for a period of time, but then the cancer reappeared, and he just let it take its course. And on October 5th, 2011, he died. But Steve's legacy still lives on, and he changed the way we think of technology, music, film, and electronic devices. Another thing I want to talk about is the start of Apple. Whenever Steve was 13, he met up with Stephen Wozniak, who was 18. And whenever Steve returned to California from Oregon, he met back up with Woz, and he got intrigued with his new activities that he was doing. He made a computer that did not need a simple computer kit. And Steve convinced Woz to make a company out of this, and as a result, Apple Computers, later known as Apple, was born on April 1st, 1976. They started making Apple I computers, and they were selling them, but then Woz started to create this Apple II computer that could support color graphics, and Steve convinced Mike Marcooley to invest $250,000 into Apple, and he was a firm believer that Apple would become successful, and he was very right in saying so. He even said that the Apple II computers would make Apple be one of the Fortune 500 in less than 2 years after the company been started. He was a very firm believer, as you can tell. Another thing I want to talk about is evolution of the products that Apple made. One would be the Apple II computers, like I said. In 1977, they were invented. They supported color graphics, and they were famous for the famous Apple rainbow logo. It reflected the computer's superior color output. It looks somewhat like this. Another thing I want to talk about is the Apple IIc. It was introduced in 1984. It was the first attempt at both portable and out-of-the-box functionality. However, it lacked a portable power cord, which is kind of important to have a portable computer. Another thing would be the Mac that was introduced in 1984. Many people say this is what started the whole thing. Another thing would be the iMac G3. It was introduced in 1998. It did away with the tower, but it kept the computing power. It was available in many different colors, such as blue and pink, and it did away with the boring beige and white that Apple only produced before. Another would be the iMac G4. This was introduced in 2002. It was the first show of Apple's desire to slim down the product and only have necessary computing parts. It was actually nicknamed the iLamp because of the swivel monitor. It looked like this. Many people actually made the bottom of the computer into an actual lamp, which is pretty neat. Another, it would be the iMac Intel-based aluminum. It was introduced in 2007, and this is the current iMac that we all know now. Another would be the Macintosh Portable that was introduced in 1989. It was the first computer with a portable power supply, so the first laptop that Apple ever produced. In 2006, the MacBook was introduced. This was the first MacBook that had now standard features. In 2008, the MacBook Pro. This is the most recent Pro design that we all know now, too. Steve knew the power that the music would have on Apple, and he decided that he would make a device just for this. And he made the iPod. In 2001, he made the Generation 1 iPod, and this was a complete success. In 2002, he had the Generation 2. This featured a touch-sensitive wheel. In 2006, he introduced the iPod Shuffle. This was the smallest device that Apple had ever made, and it looked somewhat like this. And in 2005, the iPod Nano. In 2007, the iPod Touch. This allowed users to interact with various games and apps. I knew I played with Touch Revolution all the time, and it just made the game more enjoyable. You felt like you were part of it. In 2007, the iPhone also was introduced. This had a touchscreen range of free and cheap apps, and you could get these at the iTunes App Store. Steve also made the iTunes Store because he wanted to cut down on piracy and make the sales prices go up on songs and apps, and also protect the other artists' products. I truly believe Apple would not be where it's at without Steve. He paved the way for technology and showed the major possibilities that could come from technology, and he showed everything available with technology.